What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. And today we are starting the first of our 8 divisional previews going into the 2025 NFL season. And we're starting with the NFC North. So that will be the primary focus of today's episode. We'll talk about the Bears. We'll talk about the Packers. We'll talk about the Lions. We'll talk about the Minnesota Vikings. And it's probably one of the most interesting divisions in the NFL. Some might consider it to be the best division in the NFL right now. But before we get into it, Matt, Theo, I have a question for you guys. If you were watching a football team and they were up 18-0 at halftime, and they ended up losing 19-18, and one of the scores that led to you being up 18-0 was on defense, who would you blame for the loss?
What is this? What is this logic? Wait. So the defense scores a point or 7 points.
0 points.
The offense scored 12 points in the first half,
six.
0 points in the second half, and the defense scored once on a pick six. So,
well, I think if the defense allows less than 20 points and scores on a pick six, it's the offense's fault for only scoring 12.
I would agree. And that is the story of my flag football game this morning.
Oh.
I see. But yeah, flag football team lost today, and offense only scored 12 points the whole game. So...
Well,
I think I blame the dude who's coming on a podcast trying to make excuses.
And you know what? And here's the thing:
fingers.
is I was thinking, like, should I even bring this up? Because if someone from the team happens to listen to this episode and they're like, "Dude,
I'm sending it to him."
did you have to go off and be sneak dissing?
I mean, aren't you a two-way player?
I played offense in the first half and I played defense the whole game.
So it's your fault.
And I had
getting tired. It's your fault for.
Wait,
well, we had guys show up late.
Your team came back and won?
No, we lost.
Your team lost.
We were up 18-0 at halftime. I had the pick six, and then we come out in the second half. And
you quit. You quit defense.
Mm-hmm.
No, I quit offense. No, well, we had guys show
yeah.
up late, so I was like, okay, they'll take over on offense, and they were doing fine. It's just like missed some throws, dropped some passes. It happens. I wasn't even doing a whole lot on offense, like not really. I didn't score on offense or anything. It's not like.
And here's the truth about all sports and really all aspects of life in general. It's everyone's fault. All right. It's everyone's fault.
That's true. I gave up a big catch on
everybody.
downs.
It's everybody's
It's
fault.
everyone's fault.
Especially Justin
Are you
Herbert,
sure?
right?
Look, it's everyone's fault all the time. Like I've become increasingly paralyzed by that. I think as my analyst career has gone on, it's like, well, is there anyone to blame? Like, does anyone have bad seasons?
It's a team sport. It's the truth. It can be, sometimes it can be more one thing than another. I think of the reverse of that all the time, where it's like every time you have a great dynasty, people are trying to pick out who's the guy who actually like secretly sucks and has no impact. And it's like, you think about like Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, like the Chiefs are the most recent example. And it's like all those guys are great and that's why they win a lot of games or whatever. Right. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It's everybody's fault.
It's everybody's fault.
I've seen a lot of people try and spread like Chiefs hate, and the way they'll do it is they'll be like, Mahomes actually like didn't have that great of a year last year. He's kind of overrated. And like the receivers, well, they're just not good. Like they like mid-tier, bottom-tier receiving core. Kelsey's washed. The offensive line, mid. The defense outside of Chris Jones, mid. And they're just like, yeah, this team's actually not that good. And I'm like, yeah, but they went 15-1 last year. So something had to have been going right for them, clearly.
Yeah.
So I don't get Chiefs slander recently, but that was just, I thought of that when you brought up the Chiefs. But how are you guys doing on a beautiful Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing well. I was at a lot of parties this weekend.
There you go.
You're cool as
So hanging out. just at a bonfire, at a birthday party.
Just casual fucking regular weekend type stuff for you.
Yep.
Were you wearing like a cool pair of sunglasses, or were you like hands in your pockets sort of shrugging your shoulders like it wasn't even a big deal? Or
Definitely hands in my pockets, but that's also a bad habit that I gotta get out of. I gotta get my hands out of my pockets in social situations.
what type of it really depends on the pockets. Hands in hoodie pocket is way different than hands in like jean pocket.
Sadly, it is the latter. So that's a major oral loss. Like I see pictures from these events and I'm like, holy shit, I gotta get my hands out.
My oral loss.
You gotta get like
oral attacks is crazy. Yeah.
You gotta get like one of those jackets, those like a zip up jackets. Put your hands in those pockets. That'll be way tougher.
You got to design the offense around the limitations of the player. You know, you want to have your hands in the pocket.
That's true.
You get some clothes that it's a little bit more acceptable. Jacket or a hoodie. Absolutely.
It's everyone's fault at the party.
It's everyone's fault.
So that's true. You gotta take like a book to the function. Start reading.
I just need better posture, man. Just generally, like, get your hands out of your pockets, stand up straight. Like,
it's hard, man. It's not easy.
I think you can have your hands in your pockets and stand up straight. I think I don't think I.
But it's prone to making you lean forward a little bit and curve up a little bit. Certainly, absolutely.
It's okay though. How was your weekend?
Fine. I don't know. It was fine. Like I'm sorry, I didn't know.
It's just the way you said fine. It just had
okay. I'll be realistic. Went out with the fellas Friday night. Good old time. Talked to some people. You know, I got recognized, so that was fun, and got to talk to somebody about the Bengals. I'm getting really good at my Bengals talk. Every time somebody comes and says what's up, it's Bengals talk. So I'm super locked in.
What do you normally say? What's your kind of go-to?
Well, it depends on where they go from. I mean, I try to be generally positive, right? Even though like I kind of think the Bengals ceiling is like super low because their defense is probably just going to suck. But I say that like, you know, Burrow's got a path to MVP, which he does. That's true.
Yeah.
And that they could repeat with big passing numbers and they could probably do a little bit better. So I try to be positive in that sense. But last year it was easier. This year, a little tougher to be positive about the contract situation stuff.
Yes, but I think you can get people more excited easier. Like, because the expectations might be lower, you get to be like the
expectations still haven't lowered in this. It's still like we're just wasting Burrow. I don't think you get to go back down now. And then after that, I was hungover on Saturday, and I sat around and played Minecraft, and did nothing, and I got nothing done. I threw away a day. So
dude,
that's
I'm
what
gonna keep it I'm gonna keep it a stack with you. That sounds like a great weekend.
No, because I was sitting there getting mad at I'm like, this is a waste of a day. I didn't do anything. I just so I mean, it was fine. You know, I went and got groceries, so that's good.
That's good.
Like, come on.
Well, you know, we are in the dead of the off season, so it's not like there's even NBA. There's not even anything to talk about anymore. So doing nothing is an acceptable thing to do, I think.
You're kind of just waiting around for something to happen in the NBA. There's still stuff going on a little bit, you know.
True,
with the draft, and you know, Shams has always got a few things for you any given day. But yeah, so it was a fine weekend, and now it's today.
Now it's today. Now it's the day that we get to record Stay Hot. I don't think it's like a total waste of a day. Like in the literal sense of like you could have been doing something more productive, sure. But like I've spent an entire day playing Lego Star Wars, and like,
and that's not even as mentally like stimulating as
I'm like it's just like a total chiller. It's just the most chiller game of all time. So, but speaking of the NBA draft and speaking of NBA offseason, you know, we've been talking in the Chat BCC chat, the Stay Hot group chat, about the NBA a little bit and about how the Hornets have apparently been crushing it the past few days, supposedly having an outstanding draft, and then they just pulled Colin Sexton. We get most of our news now, I feel like, from the Stay Hot group chat. They announce it before Shams or anyone else can announce it. So I saw someone say, Sexton to the Hornets, and my first thought was, man, I miss Sexton in Cleveland, him and Darius Garland, the Sexland duo. Matt, how is Colin Sexton going to serve the Charlotte Hornets?
I mean, I just like him from a culture standpoint. He's a very intense, high energy player. I think he's good creating on the ball, and he's a decent playmaker. So, I mean, they often get to a point in the season where like LaMelo goes down, and then it's just like, who else is going to handle the ball? Obviously, Miller was down a lot last year, so it's good to have options. But the reason to like this trade is it's just kind of like very, very hard to find the path where they lose, right? Sexton's on a 1 year, $19 million. So is Nurkic. Sexton's probably the better player. I think he's definitely the better player. And we got the second round draft pick here. So it's a good move on the margins. And the Hornets have been very good at making these type of moves on the margins, where I remember when I started and Michael Jordan was still, owning the team and they were still doing all that stuff. They never made these type of trades. Top of that, I thought they did a good job in the draft. I'm pretty excited for them. We'll see how they are at center. They're probably not done making moves. If they were to trade Miles Bridges or something, then I'd be getting really pumped about the direction of the team as a whole. But yeah, Charlotte's not doing too bad. Probably still have to stay healthy. I'm not trying to get too excited, but I also think the game theory with the Hornets is like, if they're going to be bad no matter what, then the only time you'll enjoy being a fan is this portion of the offseason when you can talk yourself into their moves. So you might as well get excited about it. Because what's the downside? They're going to be bad and you're going to be disappointed. That's going to happen no matter what. You can't control that. But you can allow yourself to get excited now. And frankly, like, the letdown is really not as bad as like never even thinking about the team because you just assume they're going to win 20 games.
Yeah,
right?
That's an interesting thought process, Matt, because there's a lot of Browns fans that kind of feel the opposite, where they don't want to get their hopes up because they feel the annual crushing of your dreams is worse than just the consistent acknowledgement that the team is going to be bad.
Well, it depends. I think it's really situational because the Hornets being good for what they're doing next year, like they could win 33 games and I'd be happy, right? They could miss the play-ins, and if certain things happened, missing the play-ins, it might be tough to be like, this was a great season. But like if Khan looks good and some of the rookies start to like show some promise and like LaMelo and Brandon Miller play more or whatever, and they push for the play-ins, I could be like, all right, that's progress, and they've got a bunch of future firsts as well. And it's like, cool, right? For the Browns and basically for any NFL team outside of like the very, very, very worst team, so maybe the Browns still, if you don't make the plans, or you don't make the playoffs, it's a disappointment, right? And the Browns particularly are in a position where, like, I guess there's a world where if like Shedeur Sanders or somebody looks good, but the team overall is not that great, I don't know. They're in such a bad future spot, whereas I think the Hornets' outlook future-wise in terms of like not having a ton of salary tied up and having extra draft picks, it's a little bit different.
I think any Browns fan who says that too is just pretending. Like they're like, I don't know, I don't want to get my hopes up. Like deep down, they're like, we're gonna win 13 games. Because if you don't care about the off season and you expect the season to be bad, then like why even pay attention? If they're paying attention, it's because deep down you're like, Shedeur could be better.
Hey.
Mason Graham next to Myles Garrett is going to be exciting. Like, and of course you think that. You have the 5th overall pick, right? Or they had higher than that. They had the 2nd overall pick. So no matter what happens, you're going to get excited because you're like guaranteed to select an exciting player. So how could you not get excited? That's the other thing with the Hornets.
You could select an unexciting player.
You could. I mean, it would be crazy. I don't know what kind of reach you'd have to do. Maybe like Cleveland Farrell, that draft selection, left a team with a top 5 pick feeling a little bit like, what, like, who is this guy? Like, why are we going to be better? But I mean, if you have a really high draft pick, no matter what, you're going to start to get excited because you just added a potential like all-star or Pro Bowler or whatever. So yeah, it's hard to like not generate a little bit of buzz during the offseason when you're that bad. Just for that alone.
I suppose that's fair. And, when you think about the NFL offseason, recent years especially, the Chicago Bears have been the kind of consensus offseason winners, but they haven't been quite able to turn that into real wins. But Theo, you put in the Chat BCC group chat as well. So make sure, again, guys, if you're not in there, make sure you join so you can be a part of these discussions as well. Just type stayhot.chat in your browser. It'll take you to download the app, sign up with your phone number. It's super, super easy. And Theo, you asked the question, you put a poll in asking who will finish last in the NFC North. And overwhelmingly, people are voting for the Chicago Bears. And, since, we'll be talking about them, of course, I think we have to talk about why is it that people think they're going to be last? Is it just because they're starting from such a low point and that even getting like a significant improvement doesn't actually propel them to
well, where do you have them?
Level?
I think having them last is reasonable. And I'll say this, I think this is the most difficult division to judge, even more so than the AFC West in terms of, I think all of these teams are pretty good and have pretty serious upside, but maybe have some major flaws. The thing with the Bears is that, yeah, they were last place last year, and they certainly have the most uncertainty of any of these teams, particularly with Caleb Williams. Now, look, I don't think his situation ended up being as good as we thought it was going to be last year in terms of the offensive line not being very good. And obviously he had like 3 different play callers or whatever. I'm not necessarily the biggest, you need to have consistency with the play callers when dudes change every year. It's like, we've seen that work out well. It's good to change if you don't have a good play caller, but 3 in 1 year as a rookie is obviously a little bit different of a scenario, right? 3 in 1 year.
Not even an interim. They got the 3rd string interim.
Yeah, Baker didn't even have it that bad, man.
Right. So that type of stuff definitely doesn't help. And you had the weirdo DJ Moore stuff. Keenan Allen wasn't who we wanted him to be. Rome had a solid but not spectacular rookie season, which for a top 10 wide receiver pick, there's higher end outcomes for sure as a whole. Now, yeah, you get Ben Johnson in there, who I do think is a very good play caller. You get some serious weapons in Colston Loveland, who I think is going to be very good from day one as a receiving threat, I would bet, just off the basis of his ability to move and route run in space and whatnot.
I feel the most excited about their tight end group of any team in this division, I think by a pretty substantial margin. Loveland and Kmet is...
They definitely got 2 big guys. Yeah. I can see the vision on being interested in their 10. And they got Bird in there. And maybe more importantly, they really bolstered the offensive line, right, with Dahlman and Tooney. So they were about as aggressive and I think did a very good job when it comes to just trying to give Caleb everything around him. But just like we saw last year, we thought he had everything great around him and it didn't turn into perfect results. And while I think Caleb absolutely has the ability to be better, it's not unreasonable to say, we've seen one season and it wasn't the great play. His accuracy wasn't super consistent. His the management of the pocket wasn't always the best. His ability to process and get through reads was sometimes wonky. And maybe that all improves this offseason. I think if I had to bet, I think he will look better. I have a hard time buying that somebody with his talent, with that level of play caller, with those level of weapons, is going to have a year as bad as it was last season. And there were really good moments too. It's not like it was just all a disaster. But, when you compare that to the Lions, who just won 15 games and had one of the best offenses in the NFL, when you compare that to the Packers, who we'll get to later, but in spite of all of their issues, still had a top 10 offense and a very good drop back passing game. And you compare that to the Vikings, who, I could say similar things about in terms of having a really good supporting cast for a young quarterback, and also won 14 games last year and also had a top 3 defense last year. Absolutely, I think you can say, I like the moves the Bears made. You can even say, I think their defense is fairly talented, and Dennis Allen is a nice pickup for him at defensive coordinator. But ultimately, somebody's got to be 4th here. And while if you told me that by the end of the year, it would be the Bears with 11 wins, they'd hit double digits, and their defense ended up pushing for top 10, and Caleb really came along the way you want, and Ben Johnson was not overhyped at all, and the trick plays are in there, and he's timing up everything and hitting defenses at the right time like he was for Detroit. It wouldn't shock me, But I could look at the upside of all of these other teams and say, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they win double-digit games. Wouldn't shock me if they won even like 14 games. I mean, 2 of them did 14 plus last year, right?
Right.
So I think I'm going Chicago as my 4th team, but it's just not that I'm particularly low on them. It's somebody's got to be down here in the basement, and I think they've got the most questions.
The way I kind of framed it was, I feel like the Bears, first of all, have the most position groups where I feel like they're the worst in the division at. And every team in this division kind of plays 7 or 8 like really tough non-division matchups. And I feel the Bears are kind of the most likely to drop more of those matchups than some of these.
What position groups do you think they're the worst at?
I think running back easily.
Okay.
And then I begrudgingly, because I like some of the guys they have here, defensive line and linebacker. It's just like but it's not that they're necessarily horrible at those groups, although they are quite bad at running back. But like, it's just the rest of these teams have such good defensive lines and linebackers.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to square.
I don't know. I'm not moved by the Packers edge rushers. We'll get into them later, but I don't think
I wasn't either. But the Packers had 45 sacks last year, which was, I think, top 10 in the NFL. So like,
I mean, this Bears defense was the worst in the division pretty easily. I mean, the Lions were
but that's kind of a dubious sell for them because it wasn't bad. I don't think they had a bad defense last year.
It was aggressively average.
Play and
I thought. I mean, they were 22nd in defensive DVOA. And they did it with very little variance as well. So that 22nd mark kind of stayed the same each week. It's not like they had these really high peaks or low valleys, especially. They were 16th in sack rate, rushing 4. So right smack dab in the middle. Their PFF pass rush grade was also like 16th. So, you know, they've got a decent front, I think, with Sweat and Jarrett now and Garvin Dexter, who I think can break out. Right, it's good, but is there anybody there who is really like gonna consistently dominate one-on-ones against like a really top line?
They don't have. I mean, Jalen Johnson's had. He wasn't bad. Like, he had a great season.
Oh yeah, I love Jalen Johnson.
I think he's still. I mean, we haven't done our top 10 corners yet, but like, yeah, we're gonna get to him. I think he's a star. I think Sweat's a very good player, but I see your vision on. I think. We'll get to the other teams. I think their defense is fine.
It's fine.
Their offense has a lot of upside. Again, I have them at 4 too.
Yeah.
But I also think there's one other defense in this division that I think is maybe aggressively average, or is maybe average and aggressive.
Yeah, I think the defense being. I think we can bank on the Bears defense being okay, and not better than that, and
Fair
not
enough.
worse than that.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
If their defense is about where it was last year, I wouldn't be shocked, and I wouldn't be disappointed either. The key here really is the offense, and can their offense take the leap? But even if their offense takes a pretty substantial leap, right? Like, they were 26th in offensive EPA last year, 30th in offensive success rate. So like, very clearly one of the bottom 5 offenses in football last year. Even if they were to make a massive improvement, 15th ranked offense would be a massive improvement for them. And I think that's kind of where like the bar sets. It's like, well, if they've got a 15th ranked offense and a 15th ranked defense, that's probably an 8 or 9 win team, which probably is not winning you the NFC North.
I agree with that. I think like decent offense, decent defense is in the cards for this team, and that's a huge improvement over where they've been. But in a division where the 3 other teams have similarly phenomenal like play callers, or you know, the Lions won 15 games last year with a ton of talent, like is decent at both ends, going to get it done. And I really like Ben Johnson though. Like, I really like the direction that this offense is heading in. I think it's going to get a lot better quickly. Like, last year, they were just incompetent with the play calling. Just completely incompetent.
It was just nonsense, obviously.
they like against man coverage, right? Like pretty basic stuff here. What was their plan to beat man? Like it's DJ Moore clearing out, but he's walking, and then Keenan Allen running the crosser. He's not walking, but it's the same speed as DJ Moore walking.
He's trying not to walk.
He's trying not to walk.
He's trying.
And the line is getting shredded, and it's just terrible. Like the Bears last year against man, they saw the 6th most snaps of it in the league, and they were 29th in success rate against it.
Not good.
Not good. The Lions, they were 1st in success rate against man, and they saw the fewest man snaps in the league. So it's like teams wouldn't even play it because they knew Ben Johnson was going to dial up the most diabolical mesh with a lateral you've ever seen. And like shit would get really scary. And the Bears have the personnel to do that right away. I mean, their receivers like with Moore and Burden now and Loveland and Adunze, like there is no reason why they can't like torch man coverage immediately in a way they couldn't last year. I'm excited about Adunze in Johnson's scheme, probably being more in the slot, where he had a 66% first down rate, like 0.31 EPA per target, which is really good. Like amongst NFC North receivers, he was one of the top 5 most productive slot receivers when he aligned there. And then they've got guys who can really stretch the field still on the outside now with the Burden draft selection and more, of course, if he's more bought in. And I just like that. Like Caleb is still really talented. I feel like when there's at least one coverage out there where like things are going to be pretty easy for him. And that you couldn't say that for anything last year. For me, it just comes down to
do you think that will be man? Do you think the coverage they can exploit the most is probably man?
Oh, 100%. I mean, with all the investment they've made in weapons and the fact that that's when Johnson's really in his bag, like cover 1 against the Bears, like there's just no way that it's super successful, I feel like. Whereas last year you could call it and they wouldn't do anything. So I think it's a guarantee like that they'll get way better, but like you guys are saying, the bar is they're coming from the trenches, right? They're not coming from the middle class to the upper. They're going from the trenches to the middle class of the league in a way that
I think their upside is a little higher than being just average on offense potentially.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that.
I don't disagree where it's like we shouldn't sit here and be like they're going to have the 8th best offense, but I also think that's completely possible, right? You know, depending on how quickly the rookies can make an impact, depending on what happens with Caleb Williams, obviously, depending on like if DJ Moore wants to try or if he's cool. And there's a lot of ifs there, but like again, I'll be real with you. I like Ben Johnson. I like Caleb Williams. I like DJ Moore. I like Loveland. Like these are dudes that I thought were good before they had anything to do with the Bears. Obviously, like everybody's got somebody that they think can really change the game for them. I feel pretty decent about a lot of the ones in Chicago, but you got to leave yourself some room for not everything to break your way any given year. Stuff happens that you would never expect. Like, for instance, one of your best receivers can be pissed at the play calling and stop trying. And it's like, that's tough to predict necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I got him here at 4. I hope that's not too disrespectful. I think both of you
I don't
guys
think it is.
I think most people.
Again, yeah, considering what the group chat is saying, everyone's saying
it's a pretty consensus.
Yeah, this won't be a hot take outside of like a faction of the Bears fans. Yeah, and I agree that they could be that they could be higher. Like I don't think the Bears being a playoff team is out of the realm of possibility at all. But yeah, there's a lot of what ifs still with Caleb Williams, and then the run game is probably the least robust in the division as well, and that's a big difference of what Ben Johnson doesn't have Jahmyr Gibbs anymore. So
you're taking the words right out of my mouth.
So why even play man against the Bears? Like, why not sit in a too high shell if you think you can defend the run game pretty easily? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, what Ben Johnson was working with last year looks very different because you're not getting that extra hat in the box out of fear of what Gibbs and Sewell and Ragnow can do, right? This is not an elusive running back room at all. The line is better, but I think it's more built for pass protection with Tooney, and it's also not very deep. And there are guys with injury concerns, like Jonah Jackson has.
Yeah.
Like, go look up Jonah Jackson injury history, and it's hilarious. Like, it's every part of his body for years. So, is he going to play 17 games? Drew Dahlman has some ankle history the last 2 seasons. Is he going to play 17 games? And then it's Bill Murray out there, you know? So, like, the depth in the line, the backs, the what ifs with Williams, the fact that the defense is just kind of like okay looking. It all to me seems like 4th in a pretty good division. But like I am excited about this Caleb Ben meshing. I just don't know if it'll be all there year 1. You know, they've got a long way to go. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. I think the biggest reason to not project them to be like a surefire top, because I honestly, I would love to make that prediction, just be like, oh yeah, the Bears, they're just going to rock on offense this year. But I think the biggest reason is the run game. It's like, if we were looking at a team where it's like, oh, dude, their running backs are sick and their receivers are sick and they've got Ben Johnson, then we'd just be like, yeah, this is just going to be Lions part 2. But the fact that we have to see Ben Johnson operate an offense that's completely different than the one he was working with a year ago in Detroit. And that's the thing where it's like, there could be some growing pains. That's not unreasonable.
No.
And even when things get to maximum capacity, they could still be a little bit capped just because, like you said, Theo, why would you run man coverage if you just like there's just no threat of the run game at all?
Yeah, exactly. Why not play cover 4 or cover 2 or something that brackets the sidelines and live with whatever they do in the run game. I am interested to see Ben Johnson with a quarterback who can run. I think that can alleviate some of the issues that the talent deficiencies from where the Lions were to where the Bears are, is the fact that Caleb Williams can kind of steal a gap and is legitimately elusive and a tough runner.
Sure.
And then they can also hand it off to DJ Morin. He's a pretty serious runner. Luther Burden's a pretty serious ball carrier.
If there's anyone that I want like getting like too cute in the run game, it's probably Ben Johnson.
Exactly. So like he might be able to build it in a cave with spare parts like Tony Stark. He really might. So yeah, I do like what the Bears are building, and I still am a Caleb Williams believer. That 2-minute drill versus the Packers, that game against Minnesota when he was hitting all those trick throws, like he is kind of a special athlete still, and I always care about that too much. So, but still, it's like, man, are they going to be better than the 15-win Lions all of a sudden because they got the OC,
I don't know.
the 14-win Vikings?
I don't know if the regression works quite like that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Speaking of the Vikings, they are actually second in the poll right now. Like, and it's not by a lot, but 26% is not like that unreasonable. And it's I think that's kind of crazy to project the Vikings to finish last place in this division. Matt, we talked about it on, I think, the last episode or maybe the episode before that, when we were just kind of spitting about McCarthy, and it's like the floor for what, I mean, he would have to, how bad would he have to be for the offense to just be like a complete disaster, right? I could see them not being quite as good as they were last year. But I can't find a world where they're finishing last unless McCarthy is like literally the worst quarterback in the NFL.
They have a question mark at the biggest position.
Sure.
Right. So that's where the conversation starts with them, and it's why they're such a hard team to judge. It's why it's such a hard division to judge. Right. I think outside of quarterback, the Vikings are a considerably better team than they were last year. Particularly their interior offensive line should change the game for what they'll be able to do in the run game. They were not a good running team last year. I think this year they've got a much better chance to be at least competitive in that phase. Obviously, they're bringing back a great receiving core. They have, I think, we're doing our top 100 at some point. I think they maybe have the best player in the NFL as wide receiver 1. Justin Jefferson is about as good as it is. And, it's one thing to have a star. It's another thing to have him, is kind of my opinion. And obviously, like, their weapons as a whole are really good. Aaron Jones is still playing good ball. They got better backup in Mason now, which I think isn't completely unimportant for what it's worth. But maybe on defense as well, it's like now you've got some defensive line help. Allen, I think I'm pretty excited about. Now the question is like, okay, they weren't good on the interior last year, on the defensive line. Hardgrave, I'm maybe not quite as high on, but Allen, I think, does have a lot of juice and was battling through injury last year.
Totally.
And if they get my thought is, like, if they get anything out of the interior, then, like, that's going to be a big upgrade for them. And this was a team that was, I think, top 3 in EPA per play. Now the question is, right, where are they going to be in terms of, like, getting the interceptions that they did and creating the havoc? Do we think that kind of falls back down to earth a little bit because you can only sustain such a high rate? Or do we think it's a defense that is prone to creating a lot of havoc? The answer might be somewhere in between, but honestly, I think that they're going to repeat as a very good defense. And when everything outside of quarterback is that strong, I am liable to think that they're going to return as a really good team. Now, will they win 14 games again? Tough to predict anybody to get that many wins. I mean, even like the Eagles, you're like, maybe they get down to 13. There's only a couple of teams that are that good.
Yeah, I mean, the highest
over-under
in the league is 11.5.
Of course. So there's a level of variance.
14 is probably not going to happen.
And their corners still aren't great. I mean, there's still questions about this team outside of McCarthy, but I think they're really stacked and they got really aggressive addressing issues. As far as McCarthy goes, I do agree, like, if you're predicting them to finish last, you think McCarthy is going to be a disaster. That's the path to them being last in this division. Without, like, some, like, major injury, of course, which can always happen.
Especially with McCarthy. I mean, he played one preseason game and tore his meniscus. I think that's the secret downside that people should think more about is, like, is McCarthy going to play 17 games? Like, is he durable? That's my big question mark more than anything.
After one injury, are we factoring that in? I mean, I don't know.
He played, like, I don't know if he'll be injury prone the rest of his career.
He's been training, like, since then.
No doubt. But he is a smaller quarterback who saw one, like, second of game action and tore his meniscus, like that's
he's listed at like 6'3", 220. I don't think that's that small.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know is he more likely to be injured than Caleb Williams? Caleb
got killed a million times and he didn't get hurt, and McCarthy played in one preseason game and got hurt.
Let's say McCarthy gets hurt. Do you think they would be last in the division with Sam Howell?
Yes. Yes, 100%. Look, I don't think it'll. I don't want to project it.
No doubt.
No doubt. I mean, if the other 3 quarterbacks are healthy and it was Sam Howell starting for the Vikings, I'd say, like, yeah, they're going to finish last.
I mean, it'd just be Jefferson go ball.
Sam Howell cannot like play without sustaining just a massive amount of negative plays. I don't think McCarthy will get hurt or anything. I just think, like, he might be injury prone. That's all I'm saying. More than like a Jared Goff.
I don't know. I think I question if we do that for every player who has, like, an injury and whether or not it just makes them, like, potentially injury prone. If we're factoring it, I won't say it's not impossible.
Yeah.
But, like, this is before the point where I'm really, like, factoring that into our evaluation of them.
Yeah.
As a team in the preseason.
Kyler he's always kind of dealing with things. Like, is McCarthy going to be dealing with things? I don't know. And he's not the only one. Like, Will Fries is coming off a fractured tibia, and Darisaw is coming off a torn ACL and MCL. Like, injuries generally with this Vikings offense does get me a little nervous. There's a lot of people working off of them, coming back from them, unproven with them in the case of Fries and McCarthy. The meniscus, I don't think it's like this huge deal. A meniscus injury is actually not that like rare. A lot of people play through meniscus injuries and deal with the effects later. McCarthy actually got surgery on it immediately, 2 surgeries on it, and has sat out a year. So it's like, I don't really think this specific meniscus injury is going to like ruin him or anything. I just think like is he a quarterback that is going to, get dinged up more than others? Like maybe, like that's something that does come to mind. And if Howell is the backup, that's not a very great backup situation, I'd say. So it's
an average backup situation, probably.
True. Most backup situations are pretty disastrous. Howell might be more than most. I feel like if most quarterbacks played a whole season, even the backups, it would be 22 picks, like 50 sacks.
Howell is a certain type of backup. I mean, there's a lot of backups who just like don't even press the issue and just sputter around. I mean, I promise you get down to the 64th best quarterback in the NFL, it gets very scary very quickly. I think Howell's like an average backup, which means not great, but like it is what it is.
Is there a they could grab if things went south?
I'm sure they possibly make a trade. I mean, there's all sorts of backups.
But we're going to operate under the impression that McCarthy will be healthy.
I mean, you've got to, right? You could operate under the impression that Jared Goff's going to go down and Hendon Hooker will be,
you could. There's just not the same history there, like.
But it's not. It's like a one-off injury. You don't start the history after one injury, even if it's possible that he does turn injury prone. One data point is just not enough.
Yeah, I feel you.
Look, I think
Goff does have like a somewhat prominent history.
Didn't he? He had a major injury at some point.
He is so in 2016 he bruised his tailbone and then he had a concussion in. Later in the season in 2016, he fractured his hand in 2020, and then he had an abdominal strain in 2021. He only missed he barely.
He's only missed a handful.
He's been. Like, I mean, he's missed what 3 games over the course of his Lions tenure.
Okay, let me totally derail this thing real quick.
Please do.
You know how like you go on Pro Football Reference and they have the AV, which is some sort of like average or
approximate
value.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Jared Goff. They gave him a -2 for his rookie season. I don't think I've ever seen this thing at a negative before. That's crazy.
He deserved it.
What happened? What happened that year? He played 7 games. Did they put him out there the first 7 and then they said woof, or was it the last 7? Or did he get hurt?
It was the last 7.
It was the last 7.
And it was like the worst shit ever.
Yeah, it wasn't good. 5 touchdowns.
I'm seeing on the same data table, I'm seeing a 29% success rate on dropbacks. 29. when he before he got traded to Detroit, like when he was playing like horrible, not horrible.
No, I remember
good enough, bad enough that McVay wanted nothing to do with him anymore and was telling him the play calls and the defense in his ear. He's like talking super fast while the mics are still on. He's like, they're in cover 2, like you got it. And then I would cut off.
No, it was bad enough that McVay had to like apologize in an article to Jared Goff. He was like, I didn't develop him right. Like it's my fault.
He was at a 49.6% success rate in those years. So the 29 is pretty bad. -2 is deserved. But that is a sidebar. At any rate, as long as McCarthy is out there, I do think he can like fake the play action, turn around, throw it to Justin Jefferson at a pretty high rate. I think any quarterback can. I think as long as you've got JJ, like Cousins will look good, Darnold will look good, JJ will look good, right? Like he's not only him, but Addison's awesome. Like Addison's a fantastic player. And I like the Jordan Mason addition a lot. Like, I think he's got some like bulk and size at this point in his career that Aaron Jones doesn't. Aaron Jones is still a very crafty running back and can receive a little bit, but when he gets hit pretty solidly these days, like he's not going forward anymore. And I think you're starting to see some of the fall off in his physicality. Like to add somebody like Jordan Mason, who's got really good vision and some of that bruising, fall forward ability. Like I think that's a really underrated pickup for them. And yeah, I think the defense is going to rock. Like going from Tillery to Jonathan Allen matters. Like that's big.
Tillery's still catching Theo's backhand in 2025.
We're talking about the off-season additions and what they went.
No, you're right. You're right.
Jonathan Allen is a lot better than Jerry Tillery. Look, no shade, but it's just the truth.
We're not trying to get Jerry Tillery on the podcast anytime soon.
We talk about, is their interception luck going to go the wrong way? But they're getting Mekhi Blackman, their corner, who we last saw as a rookie back from an ACL, and he had pretty good production on the ball. Like that was one thing about him, is he made a lot of plays on it, PBUs, interceptions, or whatever. So that there's a lot of question marks in the corner room, but there's also a little bit of intrigue where it's like, man, Isaiah Rodgers was kind of on the upswing in Indianapolis. He got suspended for gambling, disappeared for a while, showed up as a backup on the Eagles, like played pretty well when Darius Slay came down, and now he's in line for a starting job again. Like, can he kind of continue to ascend? Byron Murphy is good. Like, could the corner room stink? Absolutely. But could it be better than it was last year? It also could be.
They have best defense in the NFL potential.
Absolutely. I agree.
At least in terms of like regular season production, I think there's no question about that.
Trust in Flores, man. He's an elite defensive coordinator. He's one of those guys like a Belichick or a Spags or, whoever you want to say.
Like a Belichick. Yeah, it's where he comes from, man.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's the best asset that the Vikings have, I feel like, where it's like no one really will want him as a head coach, I think. But he's an elite defensive coordinator. So you've just got this situation where he's going to be causing havoc for years while Justin Jefferson's on the offensive side of the ball. And that's the reason why, there's a lot of reason to believe in the Vikings, I think. But yeah.
So where did you guys have them? Because I couldn't decide. It was pretty.
Him at 2.
Oh, Lord.
I'll be real with you. I have it Bears, Packers at 3, and I cannot decide between Lions or Vikings at 1 or 2. The Vikings easily have the biggest question mark of the whole division, really. I mean, I guess Caleb's kind of the same, but we haven't even seen JJ McCarthy. Maybe that's not a bad thing if Caleb played bad, but regardless,
but it's not his fault.
But regardless, like, I think their defense is so set up to be fantastic, and I think everything else is just really, really certain. Like, I think there's a real case for them being 1 and taking a look at what the Lions are and saying, like, yeah, they may have taken a step back in these certain areas, and like the brain drain is going to be a big deal, and they lost Ragnow. So
yeah, man.
Think of another example other than the Eagles of like significant brain drain hurting a team.
I mean, the Titans. And they lost LaFleur, I guess. I don't know. Maybe
who was their head coach at that time?
Maybe they just went to Arthur Smith, though. So I don't know.
I guess my thought is like, and this is kind of where I've been thinking with the Lions, is like, as much as we want to say that, like, yes, they lost both their coordinators, that could be very bad for them. And I assume we're just kind of like moving on to the Lions. And
it wasn't good for Dallas when they lost Dan Quinn.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't think I can buy into. Yeah.
It makes sense, right? Like someone really talented leaves the building and it gets worse.
But I think the Lions could be impacted less by it than some other teams, simply because, I mean, first of all, I think it's fair to say that they have the most safe quarterback room, or just quarterback in this in this
Sure,
division.
but again, I think that's frame. This is a guy who's capable of bad play. We've seen it before.
No, he is, but so is Jordan Love, right? I think it's just like,
I mean, we've seen worse seasons from Goff than we've seen.
But
we've seen worse seasons from Goff. But like, I would say at the moment, Goff has been playing more safe, better football. It's close.
But that's directly affected by Ben Johnson and Frank Ragnow, two guys that are not going to be there anymore.
Yes, I think the reason why the coaching staff is going to be less impacted is because they have the best head coach of any team that I can think of with recent brain drain. Yeah, like it's not close. Like,
and they have a great roster. More importantly, like
they have a great roster and a great head coach.
If you look at the Lions, is there another NFC North team with a defensive lineman as good as Hutchinson or a DB as good as Branch?
We do not know how Hutchinson's going to be coming back. We don't know.
We don't know. Does anyone have a running back as good as Gibbs or a lineman as good as Sewell or even Kirby Joseph is a great defensive back as well. It's not just Branch. They're just a very complete roster still, I feel like. And that's what the Lions
I don't disagree with that. I have a couple of concerns about them. And I don't know if brain drain just has no chance of mattering is possible because like
matter. It's just like,
but that is what you're saying though.
No, I'm just saying like if we're saying like, okay, the Lions won 15 games last year, they're obviously not going to win 15 games again. Okay, I think that's totally fair, but I do think they can win 12. I've got them winning 12 and the Vikings winning 11. I think they can win 12 because I think they have the best quarterback, the best running back, the best defensive back core, the best head coach in this division. And I think they've still got like really good players everywhere else. Even like I think they probably have the worst receiving core, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably the second. It's close. Like I'm trying to think. Like
I just don't know if I necessarily agree by going position group by position group and rating it. Like you'd rather have the Packers over Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams and Laporta?
Well, tight end's a separate group.
Okay, then you'd rather have Golden and...
I mean, the Packers have like some good receiver group.
The Packers receivers were like it's a receiving group that underperformed last year and a rookie.
Sure.
I don't know if I could agree with.
I think they're very like neck and neck. But even like that, I'm like, if that's the one position group where I'm like, it could be the worst. That's like about it. Like there's nowhere else where I'm like, I'm just like, yeah, they're not going to be able to get it done. Like with the Vikings, I'm like, dude, their secondary could be really bad. Like we're saying the interception luck could not go their way again this year. It's because their secondary could be like one of the worst in football. That I just don't have a concern with that with the Lions.
I'm concerned about their defense a little bit and their offense, but I just don't know what to think about them. Like,
well, this is getting so far away from the original point, which is that like your opening to this cannot be outside of the Eagles. How many teams struggle with brain drain? Not that many, and the Lions have a great roster, so it won't be them. And it's like, dude, the Eagles were a great roster who got crushed by brain drain. But their coordinating got better, and they won the Super Bowl in dominant fashion. So regardless of how good your roster is, brain drain can crush you.
Yeah, they hired Vic Fangio.
But part of my reason is that like the reason why the brain drain hurted the Eagles so bad is because their head coach sucks.
Does he though?
He did that.
What is the difference between Sirianni and Campbell?
It seems like Campbell has more of a positive culture outlook than Sirianni did that year.
But
maybe that's a result of winning, right?
I'll be real with you though. I think most of your opinion of Dan Campbell really comes down to who he hires. And it's like we're sitting here before we've seen the hard part, which is getting the second wave of hires here correct. And we're saying, well, Dan Campbell's never made a mistake like Sirianni has. And look, we were super critical of Sirianni. We said he should be fired, right? So there's no reason in like pretending that's not the case. But essentially what we're saying is, well, Dan Campbell is a good coach because those hires were good. So these next hires will be good. But you could do that for like GMs. Well, this draft pick will be good because their last draft pick will be good. That's not really how it works. Even for great coaches, it's a challenge. They miss all the time. It's really, really difficult. Now, what I can agree with is we don't know if their new hires will be bad. And the Eagles are probably a bottom, 10% outcome. Like that scenario playing out isn't necessarily what's going to happen. Aiden Hutchinson being like bad next year is probably a very low end outcome. The odds are much higher in his favor of coming back and probably being maybe a little slow to start, but then really turning it on. And he was a defensive player of the year level candidate. Maybe there's some concerns about their defense, but they'll probably be healthier. And maybe that balances out losing Aaron Glenn or Hutchinson taking a little bit of time to get right. Or maybe we like, their offensive line still, regardless of whether or not Ragnow isn't there. But the idea that like the brain drain couldn't crush them and stop them from winning this division, that's not true, especially since they've lost one of the best players in football in Frank Ragnow. So I think there's enough here for it to be completely reasonable to question them about whether or not they can go back and repeat this. I mean, that being said, I'll be completely honest. I probably still like them over the Vikings because all of those questions combined aren't as big as, will JJ McCarthy be good, right? And I think there's totally a world where it's like the Vikings could have one of the best defenses and kind of a limited, like maybe their run game's only okay and McCarthy is kind of limited and is like good statistically but not awesome, and they're good and they're still not quite where the Lions are. And maybe part of it is I just don't want to pick literally the exact same order it was in last year, but when I look at it on paper, maybe that's how it shakes out. But all of these teams have major questions and crazy upside.
I'm really not sure if the Lions win this division again. Like that's kind of where I landed. It's hard to win a division this competitive 3 times in a row. Like it is. I mean, the AFC North. Like this is just some fun trivia.
What are the odds the roulette wheel lands on red 3 times in a row? Not that great, but it's not so bad if you've done it 2 times.
It's not so bad if you've done it 2 times. It's just like, I mean, I was looking at it because I was curious, like how often is it that teams win it 3 times in a row? And like for the Bills right now or the Patriots, like some of the Rodgers Packers, they did it a few times. But like the AFC North, they haven't seen a 3-peat division champion since realignment in 2002. Like in the NFC West, it hasn't happened since like the Seahawks in 2007. And for the AFC South, it hasn't happened since like the Peyton Manning Colts, like in 2005 or something like that. In the NFC East, it hasn't happened since the 04 Eagles. Like
that's just the draw to pick variance for the sake of variance.
And that is right? The draw to take variance.
I'm tempted by that. My personal self, I don't disagree with you. Right.
And I just want to get people in the mentality that like,
it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a war. They're not a lot. They lost both of their coordinators and like an all pro. Yeah. It's not going to be, I mean, they're one of the teams, but here's the thing. At the same time, they're going to get a lot back just in terms of health. And there's the potential that they're essentially adding a defensive player of the year guy in Aiden Hutchinson. If he comes back and he's healthy and he's playing like he was at the start of last year, which but like, dude, if he does that, man, the defense is just better. And the defense was already like top 10 in EPA.
Right, who do you think has a higher ceiling between the Lions and Vikings?
The Lions.
I think if JJ McCarthy's like an MVP, the Vikings.
Well, how far? Yeah, if Tyreek Williams.
I think the Vikings.
If he's like Mahomes or Lamar,
if he's like Kyler level, I think the Vikings might have a higher ceiling.
I don't know. I do kind of feel like the blitz heavy stuff where it's like we're weak at core. I feel like that doesn't translate as well to the playoffs. Is kind of my thought about the Vikings defense a little bit.
Well, let's think about the Lions defense translating to the playoffs, which was terrible last year.
Well, that's
squad corners out there, man.
Yeah, that's not even. And they got DJ Reed, man.
I do like DJ Reed.
That's a big, but that's not just like an ad. I mean, that's a massive add to what was their biggest weakness. Their best case scenario is not only a defense that is like top 5, but a defense that is like top 5 with playmakers and very few holes all around. That's the top end, where they're very good at a lot of different positions. Yeah. And offensively, the top end is that the play calling ends up being, and they're bringing in somebody who was with the Lions before. It's not like they're going to change everything up. It's just whether or not like you have the play calling talent that Ben Johnson has to pull out the trick plays. We talked about this before in the right scenario and whatnot. So, and maybe the offensive line is not just completely barren, right? It's not going to be as, you're not replacing Ragnow for nothing, but like the Eagles lost Kelsey and their offensive line's really good right now too. So it can be done. So I think their ceiling, I think the Lions' ceiling is Super Bowl, and I guess I feel like the Vikings' ceiling is Super Bowl, but you're banking on like McCarthy being really good and the defense never having an issue with, I think, maybe it's not a total guarantee the corners are bad, but it feels a lot more likely that they're not like a huge positive for Minnesota. So I guess this is all to say maybe I'll
it's
go
not like
Lions.
the safeties are like crazy either in Minnesota, but the scheme does. They're so well coached that like I'm just a picture of being a quarterback, right? They show this look, you get the protection right, like man, they're gonna light us up with this blitz, and then you snap the ball, and they all just go flying to like different corners of the field that they know about. They know where they're going. You don't know where they're going. They got eyes on you, and they're just so good, all of them, at like breaking on the concepts. Like they're just, it's not a great secondary on paper, but it does work when Flores teaches it seems. The Lions are really interesting just because they played so much man last year. Like what their plans were like super basic in comparison, where it's just like, we're going to press you. And Aaron Glenn did some cool things with being able to like pass off man coverage, like on these crossers and leveraging it. So it's like, it started as press, but eventually the guy fell off and took like a different crosser or something like that.
How many different corners played for the Lions last year, I guess is my question. Because my thought, if I were a defensive coordinator, and like I could be totally wrong on this, would be like, if I had like a bunch of injuries at corner, I would probably want to run man because it's the easiest thing to just follow him. And it's like, if we get beat, we get beat, that's fine. But like, I don't have time to like play install for different zone packages.
Well, they should have learned the same install as the starters.
Sure.
I mean, they did corners not where they were really banged up last year as much as it was linebacker and front four. I mean, they had the 31st sack rate rushing for last year. The pass rush is what fell off. It was phenomenal that they were able to have the kind of defense they did when the pass rush like legitimately did fall off so big time after Hutchinson got hurt.
The Lions' biggest stars are all so good, is really what it is. Amon-Ra is the first team All-Pro year in and year out for a reason. Yeah. I think we had, where did we even have Laporta ranked at tight end, but he's really good. Sewell is like he was our second or third ranked tackle or whatnot. Brian Branch is going to be in competition for best nickel or safety or whatever. Hutchinson, when he plays, is like, I think he was going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I've said it a million times. Like, their top guys are so good, and that makes such a big difference for them. And then I really don't let's just be real, I don't think this is a roster with an unusual amount of holes. I mean, if Hutchinson isn't good or he isn't like awesome, really their edge rusher, like their edge rushing outside of that is not good. Their pass rush is not great. But they're pretty well-rounded, man.
They are. And yet I still don't think of them as like this crazy upside team because of Goff, first of all, who I still think isn't as good under pressure as he needs to be.
Last year.
And then they got first rounded. All right, they got first rounded, and I understand the injuries, I really do. But now there's no Ragnow, and that's a permanent injury to what they suffered last year. The play calling is the thing I'm the least concerned about. I'll say that too. Like I
don't know if I agree with that. I think absolutely the play calling
of all the changes, like the decoy. I think the new offensive coordinator is going to be pretty good. Like they still got the run game coordinator. They've got a guy who was a senior assistant when Johnson was OC. Like, he was the pass game coordinator for the Broncos last year, who I think had a really well coordinated pass game and did break out like all the maybe not all the trick plays, but like they had some really crafty things last year. So I think this hire at OC is a really good one for the Lions. But I'm not as concerned about that as I am like, okay, they were 13th in pressure rate allowed last year. Probably a little bit lower than where most people would think of with the Lions. Like, oh man, this is the best. Goff is never under pressure. They must be first. Like, they were 13th, and Ragnow is a really good pass protector. And now, you know, they're relying on rookies. And sure, they drafted somebody to replace him, but like the odds that those rookies, Tate Ratledge is like a really strong NFL pass protector, as like a day 2 rookie, is probably pretty low. So like Goff under more pressure concerns me more than like the play calling, because I think they're going to run a lot of the same stuff and be okay.
I think that's fair. Like, I totally see your vision, but here's my question then. Are you considering Goff like kind of a question mark to repeat the great performances that he's had the last couple of years, where he's been very statistically good and the Lions have had a very good passing offense?
A little bit, yeah.
But then you're like not worried about that with the Vikings and JJ McCarthy?
Oh, I'm worried about it both. Look, yeah, I'm definitely worried about it with JJ McCarthy.
And maybe let me put this another way. If that limits the Lions' upside from being a Super Bowl contender, and you also are concerned about the drop back passing game of the Eagles, then like, who does have the upside here in the NFC? Like, I think I don't disagree with you that I'm worried about like Goff. And this is why I didn't agree with your point about like Goff being the best quarterback in the division. Like, maybe true, but like, it doesn't mean that he's like some big superpower for the Lions or whatever.
Yeah,
he can be very good and he can have really tough times, right? It really depends on how good the world is around him. And there's not that many quarterbacks who can be very good. Don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to hate on Goff too much, but like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think in spite of having a QB who is not like top 10 and maybe a superpower and maybe uplifting, I don't necessarily think that means that the Lions just have no upside, because I think the last 2 years, in spite of not making the Super Bowl, they certainly have had Super Bowl upside with him. Losing Ragnow makes it more difficult for sure, but it doesn't mean that the upside is completely not there, because I think I would take fully healthy Aiden Hutchinson playing at the level he was last year over keeping Ragnow. And I certainly would take no Ragnow and like viable injury luck over what happened last year, which is, to be clear, like they had no chance of doing any. They were not going to win the Super Bowl because they got too hurt.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's true. That is true.
That's true.
So I guess I'm talking myself into the exact same order, which is so lame. But here's the issue, is that if my best argument against it, and not to say that there isn't arguments both ways, of course, we've been talking forever about this, but like my reasoning just cannot be, well, it has to be different. It probably will be, but it probably won't be any specific order. So I don't know.
Well, I think that's going to be everybody's mentality, right? Is like, look, the Lions may have lost a lot, but they still got stars. And I agree with that. Like, I really do agree with that. And I think it's just tough to know what to make of them, because I think what if their offensive line goes from 13th in pressure rate to 23rd? You know, that's kind of scary, right? And it's not out of the realm. True. And the defense, like, I like the defense, but if like Aiden Hutchinson got his leg wrapped around a telephone pole pretty much last season, and they were the 31st sack rate, or they were 31st in sack rate when rushing 4, like I said. So like, what if that's like 19th with him this year? And they had really good performances, definitely, but they also got like nuked versus the Bills. They got nuked versus the Commanders. It was a very up and down type of year. And I think about like the Cowboys a couple years ago, they played a lot of man. They had Micah Parsons, right? Great pass rusher. Last year, they were the 28th ranked defense in EPA per play because
I don't think that's
the vein
comparable at
drain
all.
and like the man coverage kind of fell
And because their
off.
roster is way worse.
Yeah,
They don't.
that's
It's not even it's just not comparable. I don't disagree. Like again, I've been bringing up Aiden Hutchinson is coming off of an injury more than you two. I've brought that up probably every single episode actually for no reason at all. But like, I don't know. Again, it's tough. It's between the Vikings and the Lions for me. I guess my logic right now is it's easiest to imagine the Lions having a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense.
Yeah.
Versus any of these other teams where it's like the Bears are figuring out a ton on offense and their defense is probably just average. The Vikings defense, I feel like it would be a disappointment if it wasn't top 10, but offensively it's like there's still a mystery even with JJ McCarthy, and their offense, you know, had it got exposed horribly in the playoffs last year, right? And even the run game being like great. I like their additions, but it's still kind of a mystery there.
So
and
now
and then we've got the Packers.
The Packers who have no question at quarterback, who had the 7th ranked defensive DVOA last year.
The Lions have no question. Yeah, we know exactly what we're getting with.
Yeah, we're getting into.
Where is all this third? We talk about all these massive questions, and then there's just the slow and steady Packers here.
They're just sitting here at third, and we're gonna get into them. But first, I have to remind everyone to go in and join the Stay Hot group chat because we want to hear all of your thoughts on where these teams stand in the division. We've got our own group chat on Chat BCC. It's a group chat platform where we can just hang out with you guys. It's, you know, the fans of the show, the friends of the show, hanging out with the host. There's a separate chat for each thing, so we can pose questions in the main chat or in the host chat, and you guys can answer them in the main or answer them just as comments. And we'll be in there every day just talking ball. So whether it's talking about the NFC North or talking about any other division that we're going to be ranking coming up here before the season, we'll be talking about all of it. And of course, we're going to be giving away more gnomes. We did, I'm pretty sure, buy out the...
we bought out the NFL shop of Carolina Panthers garden gnomes. If you want one, this is the only way to get one. We have a monopoly on them, and the resale market is pretty crazy. So go ahead and get in the Chat BCC group chat. The Packers. Here's what I'll say. I think they have a very high floor on offense, is kind of my first thought. In spite of Jordan Love like having the ankle issue and then playing like crap last year, they were still, I think, like top 10 in EPA per play, and like their passing offense was still really good. Part of that is LaFleur.
Top
part of that
10
is the fact that
with Love playing like crap, the receivers dropping every pass, and they're still top 10. Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, truly, like, in spite of it all, it's totally possible to see how, like, you know, even a marginal upgrade from kind of the overall expectations of last year. Like if the receivers can seriously hit or Love can be more consistent, like their passing offense could be one of the best in the NFL. I really still do believe that. But even working under the assumption that like Love is somebody who's never going to be consistent, is going to be too aggressive, but it'll maybe keep value because he's not taking a lot of sacks, and maybe the receivers are who they are and you don't love Golden. I wasn't like the biggest Golden guy, but I still think he's a very good addition. Like even then, I think that paired with a run game that's really good, an offensive line that I trust, and Jacobs was good. Like I think they're going to have a pretty good offense again. I have a hard time seeing where exactly some big fall off would come for. I see way more potential for upside, and it's a unit that performed well. The issue with the Packers is that I just don't think their defense has like any major upside to me. Now, here's what I'll say. I think they've got some guys who can make big plays for them. Like obviously they had a lot of interceptions last year from McKinney, and we talked about Edgerrin Cooper now multiple times on this podcast. We brought up the havoc that he produced not all that long ago, and he's going to be a full-time starter. And they did a good job like being a team that created negative plays at times last year. But ultimately, like their edge rushing, not good. Their corners, not good. And I think their ceiling as a defense is solid, and then the playoffs come along and everything gets laser focused in on, and they kind of struggle. Now, maybe maybe Love kind of fulfilling on the potential that he has and the receivers being more serious and a solid offense is enough to push for more wins than you'd expect. Again, like I think all of these teams have pretty solid upside, I guess, and a great offense and solid defense has produced a lot of wins before, certainly, but I have them at 3 still, I think, unless you've got a good argument that totally convinces me.
I just think, I don't know, like I'd rather have Love than JJ. And sure. I think they are not facing as many questions as the Lions or the Bears. Like they are just the team that has continued to little by little build things out instead of taking major hits. Now, maybe JJ isn't a major hit for the Vikings at all. Like maybe he's way better. So I can understand that. I mean, I definitely can understand that. But they are such a good offensive line team all the time. I think with Ragnow retired, they're now the best offensive line in the division by a pretty good margin. And like you said, like there's no reason why this team should have been a top 10 offense last year, and it was. I don't think it's that hard to imagine this team being top 3 in offense, or something like that. And even if
but they do have questions. Top 3 in offense assumes improvement from Jordan Love. That's a question.
It is.
Their defense doesn't have questions in the sense that I know their corners are bad. The question for the defense is how many reps does Bo Melton get at corner?
I think, I mean, the offense being good isn't too much of a question, right? Like maybe they're not 3 or anything like that, but as long as LaFleur has been the play caller, their offense has been pretty electric. And I don't think it's that hard to imagine.
And even when they had Willis out there, they were still able to get by. And I thought that was going to be I think LaFleur is a great coach.
He's a fantastic play caller, right? It is a big superpower. He can't get brain drained because he's the head coach and play caller. I think they had a more impactful first round than some of the other teams in this division, because Golden is better than drafting Tyleik Williams from like a game 1 impact perspective or a guard. Sorry, Blaiden.
Sure. That run defense is going to be crazy. But I also do like Matthew Golden. Yeah. I don't know. I think I can kind of see both of your visions on this. Like the offense, I actually have a lot of hope for in Green Bay. I do kind of lean with the defense is kind of my big concern, where it's like, and
we're this concerned about the defense. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's the thing, Theo. My initial thought was, worried about the Packers defense, right? That's just like being ingrained 100%. In my head. I go and look at the stats, and I'm like, they were like top 10 in every metric. What is this? They were 6th in points allowed, 5th in yards, 9th in yards per drive, 6th in points per drive. They were top 10 in EPA and success. They were like the number 4 team in defensive EPA last year. I'm like, where is all of this coming from? And then I'm like, they had 45 sacks last year, which was top 10. And they were 3rd with 17 interceptions last year.
Mm-hmm. I guess
the problem is we're talking about like interception regression with Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Right. And we're like, that's definitely.
I think it's way more likely with Green Bay.
I think it's way more likely that happened with Green Bay. And I think the sack regression is even more concerning because they were 26th in pass rush win rate last year.
Yeah. I agree with the sack point. But like, even if you remove turnovers from the equation, Green Bay was 4th in defensive EPA last year. Even if you take out turnovers. So the defense, like, the question is with the defense.
Well, the issue is they were 21st in defensive success rate. So that's the other real.
And what it was is Hafley was just a monster on 3rd down. Like Hafley was supposed to be this like crazy blitz pressure path guy. Like that's what I was expecting Jim Schwartz before the season, like playing man on the outside, like getting it just so that like everything, all the moving pieces and the stunts and the blitzes, like create this trap on the quarterback that the offensive line can't quite stay in front of. Right. I was expecting that play in and play out, but it really wasn't the case. Like it was a lot of cover 2. It wasn't a lot of blitzing whatsoever. It wasn't adding like anybody into the pass rush all that often. But then on third down, he would design like the craziest shit imaginable. So that's how the EPA is so good when the success rate is so low, because it would get to third down and they would have like the most valuable play possible where they just kill the drive in those moments. So can he keep that up? Can he keep that up? I don't know. But Gary did get a lot better in the second half of the season. We'll see. The line does. I totally understand the problems with the defense because of the pass rush.
They just have glaring issues on defense, and I'm splitting hairs here. But like I said, I think the offense could be so good. I'm still kind of a Jordan Love believer, frankly. But
yeah,
I don't.
It's just you look at the defense that like ranked really well and everything, and it's just like, oh, the assumption is they're gonna fall off big time.
But we're asking, I don't know. I don't know. I compare that.
But it is fair to like defense does fluctuate wildly year to year.
But I think about comparing that to the Vikings, right? And it's like, okay, well, they actually do have a top 3 defense.
Mm-hmm.
They do. Like they did that, and then they got better on that side of the ball, right? So they have the same upside defensively that the Packers have offensively. And then, you look at the reverse, like, okay, maybe the Packers defense, like statistically, I will admit they were pretty good last year, even if like the roster itself doesn't support it. But like, I feel like the Vikings offense, you could also make the argument has some upside. I just don't know how high I really am on JJ, I guess, but like, I don't think he needs to be that great. It's like, there's other like great players on that offense. So I guess like on paper, I think the path is a little bit clear for the Vikings.
So the Packers were 8th in offensive.
Here's a question. Probably the most important single facet of the game is drop back passing. And that's the part that's the question about the Vikings. And that's the part that you feel like the Packers will definitely be better at. So how do you value that versus like maybe the Vikings overall being being like more complete?
The Packers were 8th in offensive EPA last year. The Vikings were 14th. Do you think that will widen or tighten next year? Like, I think it could widen. My bet would be widen. Like the Packers are a little bit higher. The Vikings are maybe a little
probably
bit
fair.
But at the same time, the Vikings offensive line was actually horrific at the end of the year. That's the other thing.
This is the other issue with the Vikings. They're definitely better on both sides of the ball. From an on-paper standpoint, they're definitely better.
Yeah. Like outside of the quarterback, because we just don't know. But like,
right. Quarterback being its own transcendent thing, like quarterback and rest.
Even then, like 10th overall pick versus like Sam Darnold off the street, like probably on paper is the situation you'd rather have. That's why they drafted JJ. So I don't know. I think it's a division full of good teams and no like quite great teams that I'm projecting to like win the Super Bowl. But I do think that the Packers deserve to be more highly regarded.
All right.
I will say that.
They deserve to be in the conversation. We're having the conversation about it right now.
They do. And
that's why we have this episode, man. So
I just think man, like I'm not that worried about the secondary unless there are injuries, which is very plausible. And the depth is when we could start to see Bo Melton. I do like the Nate Hobbs edition. Like, I'd rather have 16 games of Nate Hobbs than like 5 of a locked-in Jair Alexander.
I'll say this: there's one tier 1 team in the NFC, so there's gonna be somebody in the NFC Championship game, at worst, alongside the Eagles, right? So I don't know if I can say that none of these teams have win the Super Bowl upside when like. It's the NFL, dude. It's one game. Teams go on runs. Football is a crazy sport that's only played in a handful of possessions, and a fumble or an interception can totally change everything. I don't think if this was the AFC, I'd be like, all right, fair enough, because I think there's a couple of teams out there, maybe 3 teams out there where it's like, yeah. But I don't think there's like a second fully complete, like, would be a disappointment if they weren't in the championship game, which I kind of feel like is the highest bar that a team can reach in terms of contender. There's just not a second team out there like that in the NFC. And if you're in the championship game, you got a shot, because I think all of these teams are certainly like either legitimately good or have very legitimately good upside.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best case scenario for all four of these teams, I would have all of them with a winning record. Like, even the Bears, I would say like a best case scenario Bears team would just be like off the charts good. But like, I have each of these teams as either like the Bears, I have 8 or 9 wins. The Packers, I have 9 or 10 wins. The Lions and Vikings, I both have 11 or 12 wins.
Yeah, I think all of these teams could be in the NFC Championship game. I guess like even the Bears could. Like if the Commanders could get there last year, the Bears can get there this year.
I think that's
exactly.
Yeah,
I have an ambulance going outside right now, as I do every 30 minutes, which is fine. I live in a city. It is what it is. But
I live in the city, and I don't have that happen all the time. But you know,
well,
Oxford, it's the big city.
Okay.
What? I live in Columbus. What are we?
Bruh, you live in what is the speed limit on the street outside your house? Is there a stoplight on that?
So
street?
I'm in between. I'm in between like 2 main drags that are both 35. The street I'm on is like a 25 brick road.
Road, and he's like a big city. Oh, he's from Boston.
I
live in more of a traffic heavy spot than you do.
I would agree with that. Yes, I would agree with that.
But
good.
I don't know. I really struggle with how to rank these teams. I really do.
It's I you know what? I thought, like, how can I hot takeify this? Since we've been doing the podcast, I think this might be the most difficult any year one division has been to call. Truly, it is so good. The Bears have so much. You're absolutely right. It's like, dude, if the Commanders went to the NFC Championship game last year, anything can happen.
Commanders, if you can't heard the tone in which you said the Commanders.
No, I'm sorry. On paper, last year at the start of the season, the Commanders were not an NFC Championship game. And if you had predicted that, you would have been called a lunatic at the start of the season. I mean, it really is like. I mean, NFL is so crazy, and this is why there's years where like teams don't even feel that. I'm not saying this is the Commanders. There's years where the teams like don't even feel that good, and they'll like make the playoffs and win a game. You know, like I think about like, you remember that Giants team that made the playoffs like off of like just winning every one score game that they played, and they had
beat the Vikings, who also won every one score game,
and then they met another team that did the same thing, and then it's like. The next year, you're like, well, you got to respect the record a little bit. Or at least I feel like I did. It's like they're going to regress. Yeah. And then they won like 5 games, you know? And it's like, nope, that's how it goes. Like, it's crazy. And injuries obviously can change so much. I mean, look, a lot can happen. I think all of these teams have serious upside. Truly, I do like a lot about all of them. If they weren't all playing in the same division, you could make an argument to pick all of them for making the playoffs. I think it's pretty hard to pull that off.
The math,
it's pretty hard to pull
4 teams.
It's possible, but it's really like that's where you would need to predict like the Commanders to be really bad and like the 49ers or Rams to be bad. NFC South, it's not that hard to imagine that the Falcons and the Panthers or whatever like both aren't like good enough to have a winning record. Like there's a path to it, but it'd be pretty difficult.
Yeah, it'd be nuts.
I'll say I think the Lions swept every team in the division last year. And so maybe they're far enough ahead where if there is a Ragnow-Hutchinson trade-off, they can stay in first. I'm going to put the Packers ahead of the Vikings.
Okay.
And then I'll put the Bears in last.
Okay.
For now.
I'll go same order as last year.
Yeah.
And
order is last.
But it's not that I can't quite get myself to, I don't know. I just can't quite get myself to go Vikings over Lions. I think quarterback is just too big of a question mark.
Yeah. I mean, they did lose 31-9 last time, but at the same time, I just don't think the Lions have any kind of guarantee to have the level of defense they did last season when they got nuked a couple times. And even though they're healthier, like, will the results be the same? I know every Lions fans will say, well, of course they'll be better, but I just don't know when the variance was as high as it was last year and they're losing their DC, like, and Hutchinson's hurt. So I think the Lions are very human in this division, but I do think that they have the podium players. Like, when you close your eyes and you picture being at the Super Bowl media and going to place, like Sewell, Branch, Joseph, Goff, Gibbs, St. Brown, like the Packers don't quite have that level of star player power, and the Vikings.
You're almost doing the cowherd bit.
I
now.
am
It's
doing
like,
the
close your
cowherd bit.
eyes. Who do
Close
you?
your eyes and imagine. So, well, see, if I would have done that last year with the Eagles, I wouldn't have predicted them to win 9 games. So that this year I'm just like podium pilled. So let's beat podium. Even though I poo-pooed the Lions the entirety of this episode and tried to argue about
It
why
ain't
they would
easy,
fall off.
bro.
They might fall off and still be first, but they're not winning 15 games. And right now, the line scares me. The line does scare me, and the defensive variance scares me. But the talent should win out some way or another, especially by the end of the year.
I don't think the variance is working against the Lions defensively. That I can tell you. I really don't think that it is. I think the biggest concern for their defense is that Hutch comes back slow.
Yeah.
Or like not the same. That's the biggest concern. But like if you told me right now that Hutch was going to be okay, like the variance about a defense that got so injured, again, just ruined their season. They had, I think, of any competitive team, probably if you could change one thing about last year, it would be that you'd make, well, outside of like Panthers.
But the thing is, it didn't ruin their season. You know? It didn't ruin their season statistically. In fact, they did very well after the Hutchinson injury by like the grace of God.
Yeah, but now they don't need the grace of God. I don't know. Yeah. I'm going to go same order, but the understanding being it's not because I'm scared to pick a new order or to think something different can happen, but I'm actually brave to say that things could stay the same. Like that.
He is brave to say that. What if we gave like a hot take order and like,
it's up to you now.
Like,
I already
you got an order, man. You give it.
Well, okay. Well, my regular order will be Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears. Hot take order would be Bears win the division. Caleb Williams and they just get
you get one. You don't get to say the same order, but also now let me say the craziest possible things happen.
It goes on the different. It flips.
No, it'll be Bears move to first, Vikings move to last, and Packers are second. We'll say that Packers are second. So you get the Bears and the Packers in the playoffs.
My hot take order for the NFC East is that the Giants finish first and the Eagles finish last.
Okay.
You don't get to have a hot take order and
I'm giving if the Bears finish first, you get no bonus points. You don't get to be like
I get no bonus points.
Nope. You get no bonus points.
We all acknowledge that they could be good. How about this? Do you think it's more likely that the Bears finish first or the Lions finish last?
Oh, that's actually kind of. I think it's more likely the Bears finish first.
I think it's more likely.
That's a good one.
I think it's more likely the Bears finish first. I don't think there's like the Lions win line is what, like 10.5 is what we looked at before. I would say like if they go under it, it'll be because they get 10. But like the Bears winning it means they get what, like 12 wins? I would feel like more comfortable with the Bears.
I'm trying to imagine how would a Goff injury be enough, and then what are the odds of a Goff injury versus what are the odds that the Lions. Yeah, honestly, you probably could look this up on like a sports book or whatever.
You probably could.
I would odds for you about which is more realistic.
I do think it's the Yeah, I'm sure they do because you can bet on the specific place that they finish. So
I'd say
Bears
the Lions
first.
last, but that's more off the principle of like, I think it's easier to have one injury at quarterback that cooks you rather than for the Bears to not only have everything go right,
Yeah,
but then like also be better than the Packers and the Vikings and the Lions. Because the sneaky thing about the Bears is that like they could get a really great outcome and not win it. You know what I
yes,
mean?
exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. They could be
Okay.
the wild card at second.
Right,
that would be
exactly. Like
fantastic.
they could win, or I mean, like I don't necessarily think this will happen, but they could win like 13 games and not win the division, right? They could
Yeah,
win
true.
12 games and not win the division, right?
Yeah, they got
So,
they got to go through Jordan Love winning 16.
They gotta go through Jordan Love.
I think, yeah, I agree with you, Matt, that I think it's more likely that the Lions finish last because of it. There could just be some injury to Goff, especially with the line being worse. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe Ragnow and Johnson, like Goff is just like cooked as too. Maybe he sucks.
What if he's just
What if
horrible?
Jared Goff is terrible? But Blaiden is always right. So
My what ifs are
dude, when Blaiden says what ifs, there's some monkey paw that curls some.
there is some I'm trying to look at the odds on this right now. The odds for the Chicago Bears to finish first, but that's a specific order. The best odds for the Chicago Bears finishing first is plus 2,700. The best odds for the Lions finishing.
you can look at, you don't have to go exact order. You can look at like.
Wait, no. What is?
Oh, the odds for the Lions, the Bears to just win it is plus 50. Is plus 550.
550. That's not
Yeah.
that bad. Wow, that's not that bad. That's pretty good. That's
bad.
That's better than what the Thunder had at the start of the year to win the title. And like,
Damn.
they were pretty clearly the second best team too.
Yeah,
That is crazy. I guess that takes into account injury,
sure.
but you know,
Oh, and then I can look up Detroit Lions exact finish.
exact fourth. Yeah, you
Okay.
can.
Plus 500.
Wow, so good question. It's pretty dang close.
That's a great question.
it is a hard hypothetical because it's like, would you rather have Ben Johnson with Caleb Williams or Jared Goff without?
The thing
Johnson,
is that
like
it's I think it's more a question about like just sort of the nature, not necessarily how good the teams are, but the nature of accomplishing those two things.
Yeah.
Where it's like you can be last by just like nuking sort of the city with a terrible injury or whatever. Like if Hutchinson doesn't come back right and then like Goff were to go down, it's like that's probably it, right?
Yeah.
And you could win 8 games and still be like not that bad or whatever, but like that's going to get you last. Whereas like the Bears could be good and then like I said, you know, still
yeah,
not.
everything could
So-
hit where like, man, Adunze is a great power slot and Caleb is like really turned it around, and like the defense with Dennis Allen is like solidly, you know, the 10th ish best in the league, something like that. Like, man, all of these things are going really
It would
well.
be cool
and then
if
it's
they
like,
were good.
nah,
No, it would
it'd be cooler if the Packers were good.
I genuinely, it would be cool if the Bears were really awesome or the Packers offense was like the number 1 in the league or something. I think both of those would be pretty sick. Just in terms of like mixing it up. Crazy stuff will happen.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think both of those are very real possibilities, but we'll see.
Crazy stuff will happen en route to the same result. But
Our editor. Did you see what Manny just put in the group chat?
no,
He's got the odds on my hot take order is plus 3,500.
I guess that's
dude. First Chicago, second Green Bay, third Vikings, fourth Lions. I don't think I'd bet on that.
let's do a silly one. Let's do a silly one.
silly one.
Yeah.
Scared money don't make money.
I saw someone on TikTok that was like, why are we gambling when we should just be ordering a bunch of ride shares and like trying to distract the drivers so they crash?
National terror attack on rideshare day.
I was like, that's insane. It's
Yeah.
one of the most insane ideas I've ever heard.
That's a great idea.
Very
I
funny.
like that.
But
We should
I
all
think can
we
wrap
should
things-
all decide to bet on every conceivable order of the NFC North and then share the profits eventually. Like, how can we jerry rig it so like?
So
The book's got an edge. It don't work like that.
But if
We set
all
up
of
a
us,
pool.
if we all bet together, we could beat the sports.
So we're saying everyone in the Stay Hot group chat donates $1. We split that 4 ways into 4 different accounts, and then the winning group gets the prize money. Right? Is that what you're proposing?
I don't know. I don't know if the math of this is possible. The supercomputers that Vegas has probably has prevented against this.
Well, if we're doing specific orders,
No, we're probably outthinking it.
3 times.
No, we're probably winning.
But maybe.
But
All right, well, let's wrap this up. In reality, the moral of this podcast is none of us know anything about what is.
it's true.
But it's
No
fun to
one's ever-
muse. It's fun to muse about what could go down.
That's true. That's true.
I'm all in on JJ McCarthy injury.
See,
Tyreek Williams, 0 sack.
Clip that just from.
Tyreek Williams,
Call it.
3 tackles, 0 sacks.
Yeah, but he doesn't need to get sacks. He's the best run defender ever.
Nate Hobbs.
They're gonna have the highest run stop win rate, and they're gonna have the most run stuffs in the NFL. Bang. It's a lock. But thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. As always, we'll be back with more of these division rankings. We've got a couple more positions we have to rank as well, so make sure you stay tuned for those. And until next time, from your favorite 3 fellas here at Stay Hot, thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.